I'm gonna teach you how to turn your snowboard in 5 easy steps, and stay to the end because I'm gonna break down 6 of the most common mistakes that you're making on your snowboard. Before we start doing any turns, we definitely wanna make sure that we're able to stop our snowboard. So when we stop on our heel side edge, our goal is to keep our shoulders, hips, and knees over the board in a nice athletic stacked position. And then what we're gonna do is sink our tailbone back, apply pressure to your high backs with your boots, and we're thinking about sitting back in a chair. By being in this position, we're allowing our body to be nicely over the board without falling over. As we want to slow down, we need to create tilt, which simply means the board goes up. The more tilt we have, the more friction we create, therefore we can slow down faster. So as we are maneuvering around and stopping and going, I definitely want you to think about keeping the movements nice and smooth and controlled. So as we're going, I'm leaning back, lifting up my toes and creating that tilt. As far as our toe side position, we're gonna wanna make sure our shoulders, knees, and hips are over our board, but notice that I'm pressing my shins against the front of the boots. My hips are actually forward and my spine is upright. This is an incredible body position for snowboarding and a snowboard position you will carry through the rest of your career. So I recommend figuring out this position now. We are not looking for this position, we're looking for this position. And then as I want to increase tilt or be able to slow down, I want to lean into the uphill as well as press more on my shin and press my hips forward even more. Jump into the ski and snowboard season the right way by picking up a pair of the Bennett Viewfinder goggles. These things are packed with awesome features like these magnetic lenses, taller straps for added comfort, and you even receive a bonus low light lens with every purchase. And there's only a limited amount of goggles left, so check out the link below. So now let's dive into actually doing steps to turn your snowboard. The very first step that we're gonna do is we're gonna allow our board to point straight down the hill, and then we're going to come to a stop. This is called a J-turn. Now, as I point my board down the fall line, I'm gonna pick up a little bit of speed, but notice that I'm not going fast. I'm gonna count to 1,000, 2 1,000, and then I'm gonna turn my board sideways. Now, when I want to start that turn, I have about 60% of the weight on my lead foot, and I'm going to rotate my knee and do something called knee steering. If you can learn this concept now, it's literally gonna be a game changer for the rest of your career, but we're gonna rotate our knee and we're gonna get that board to go sideways. Now, I want you to do this task 3 to 5 times until you're super comfortable. Once you're more comfortable with it, I want you to go to a 5 count. So we're gonna point our board down the fault line for even longer, allowing us to pick up speed, and then we're gonna come to a stop. When we do come to a stop, remember, we're trying to slow down smooth and progressively, not slam on the brakes and get out of control, but nice and smooth. One helpful hint when doing skidded turns, think about your board is a knife and you're trying to smear peanut butter. If you find that you're getting on an aggressive edge, you're gonna fall over, but if you can just smear the snow, it's gonna make things 10 times easier. Once you're feeling pretty awesome about your heel side, now let's work on our toe side. We can start in the very similar position, which is going to be our heels. We're going to point our board down the fall line, and then we're going to stop on our toe side edge. As I go point my board down the fall line, I will count to 1 1,000, 2 1,000, make that turn, and I have 60% of the weight on my lead foot. This is going to allow me to make that turn a little bit easier. One thing that's going to make this a lot easier is pressing your knee over your shin, getting that board to flex and twist and allow that board to help you make that turn. Do this again, repeat it 3 to 5 times as you're feeling pretty awesome, and then increase how much speed you pick up by how long you point your board down the fall line. Now that we're feeling pretty awesome about coming to a stop, it's time to learn how to do a C-turn. Now, as we link our turns, let's definitively think about this as one C-turn, and then we'll worry about the other C-turn. So my goal for you is to start with your front side of your body facing uphill. The reason why we want to do this is we're going to make our first heel side turn and come to a stop with the front side of our body facing downhill. This is traditionally the more easy turn to learn, and it's way less scary. So we're going to learn this one first. And when we do this turn, we have 3 parts of our turn. We first got where our board is sideways, then we got our board pointed down the hill, and then we have our board coming to a stop right about there. Now we really got to make sure that we're doing step 1, step 2, then step 3, because if we do this out of order, you're gonna crash just like this. So when we're doing our first heel side turn, we're gonna start with the front side of our body facing up. We now are going to look in the direction we're traveling. We're gonna get our weight, 60% of our weight in the lead foot, and then we're gonna go back to this position that we're already comfortable with, which is pointing our board straight downhill. Now, depending on how comfortable you are, you could do the step 2 or point down the hill for 1/1000, or you could also do 2 or 3 seconds, depending how comfortable you are with this speed. Now notice we're back to this awesome step 1 position, but for now, what I would like us to do is sit down, roll over, and re-practice our heel side turn. And now I suggest doing this turn 5 to 10 times, knowing that we can 100% do this every time before we move on. Now let's do our toe side turn. With a toe side turn, we're gonna start with our front side of our body facing downhill. We're gonna have to go step 1, which is where we are, point our board downhill, which is step 2, and then this time we're gonna finish with the front side of our body facing uphill. This is going to be step number 3. And the best part about this turn, guess what? We're in a position to do the heel side turn again, and then that leads us to step number 3. So step number 3 is actually linking our turns, but we're gonna link our turns with a definitive pause in between. What I would like you to do is start with your body facing uphill and do a heel side turn, which we know how to do. Then we're gonna come to a complete stop, but stop without falling over. Make sure you're in control. As we're in this position, then let's go ahead and make a toe side turn. And then we're gonna come to a complete stop. And if you notice, we're doing one C turn, and then another C turn, and then another C turn, and we're gonna continue practicing this with a pause. Do this as many times as you can, and at this point, you may end up taking up a lot of real estate, and you may end up on the chairlift, which is totally cool, but focus on turn, pause, turn, pause. Step number 4 is going to be linking our turns with no pause. So this time we're going to get a nice heel side turn in, and then we're going to continue our momentum. And here we have 2 options. We can slide across the hill if we wanted to, or we could slide down the hill. But either way, I want you to keep a little bit of momentum and then go into the next turn. Now our goal, even if it's a little bit, is keep our momentum in between our turns. This is going to allow us to find a little bit more flow, and of course you're going to take up a lot of real estate. You're going to be able to get a lot more practice in, especially as we start moving and grooving. Tip number 5 is to now challenge yourself with a couple different styles of turns. Now the goal, let's go. Now our goal is to be able to do some really big, wide, long turns while managing our speed. And then can we also do more short and quicker turns, which is extremely useful for different terrain that you're going to find outside the beginner zone, which would be possibly trees, moguls, steep runs, powder runs, normal green runs, blue runs. It gets a little wild, so you definitely want to make sure that you're practicing your different styles of turns here so that when you go out into the real world, that you're set up for the most amount of success possible. Now it is time to dive into the most common mistakes that you're making on the snowboard. As a beginner, the very first one is going to be not following the 1, 2, 3 steps. And what ends up happening is you go from 1 and then you catch an edge, you fall over, and you're like, what is going on? So that's going to be the absolute biggest mistake that people are making, is not following those 3 steps. The next biggest mistake is not being in the right body positions to have the most amount of control or awareness. So that when you're on your toe side, I highly recommend that you keep your spine upright, that you are pressing your hips forward, and you have your shins against the front of your boot. This is going to give you a way better body position for balance, but notice how much I'm able to move my spine. This is going to allow me to have better awareness so I can look around. What if there's a bump, a jump, a person, someone screaming, whatever it is, I now have a better body position to look around. Also, I'm going to have a better balance, especially as the terrain gets really wild. And then the third biggest common mistake is when we try to stop, we're stopping way too fast and our belly button gets really far behind us and our feet get really in front of us, and then we fall over or we chatter the board and we fall over and we lose control. So really think about, if you're stopping quick, get lower so that your belly button is still over the board and you're not getting fully extended out. Biggest mistake number 4 is looking at your feet. You just stare down. Well, that puts you in a very compromised position for balance and maneuverability. It also doesn't let you anticipate what's happening below, whether it's a small child, an alligator on the run, or whatever it is. But the best part about snowboarding is you're strapped in and you don't need to look down at your feet. My analogy for that is, imagine you're driving a car and you're just staring at your steering wheel the whole entire time. Well, what if there's a child, a turn, a bump? Well, your eyes theoretically are looking out beyond the hood of the car. That's pretty normal. So the same thing is going to apply when it comes to snowboarding. Mistake number 5 is when you start to get your turns and you're feeling very comfortable, that your lead shoulder is super twisted open. I would like you to be in a more athletic stance, which means our shoulders, knees, and hips are over our board and our shoulder is pointing where we're going. That means if I'm making a toe side turn, my shoulder's pointing that direction. If I'm making a heel side turn, I'm pointing that direction. If I'm going straight down the run, well, guess my shoulder's pointing that direction. But we naturally want to be in a very weird position with our lead shoulder open. And the final common mistake of snowboarders is you're not turning, you're staying on your heel side edge and you're super comfortable with it. And that challenge is you're not going to be able to maintain speed, you're not going to be able to maneuver around the resort, and you're just not going to have fun. So definitely focus on linking those turns, especially as the terrain gets challenging. Re-watch this video and make sure you're doing all the steps right, but definitely make sure you reiterate all the points that we've talked about so that you can make those smooth, nice turns. If it's steep, if it's mellow, whatever it is, don't forget to knee steer. And if you thought this video was super useful, definitely give it a like and share it, because we want as many snowboarders as possible seeing the content. Also, if you're interested in picking up an awesome pair of goggles, check out shopbennettech.com. I do a live stream every single Tuesday at 7 p.m. Mountain Standard Time, and I post a whole bunch of videos, so definitely put your post notifications on.